It's time for Bears Mock Draft 12.0 as we're 3 weeks away, less than 3 weeks away, depending on when you're watching this, from the 2025 NFL Draft. My name is Harrison Graham. Let's go ahead and dive right in. And you know what we haven't done? I don't know if in a single mock is trade up. I'm going to trade up with the Jacksonville Jaguars, trading for the 5th pick. They get 10 and 41, and you would be doing this for one of two players, in my opinion. In this scenario, Mason Graham or Ashton Jeanty. And the reason you trade up to the 5th pick to get Ashton Jeanty is because the Raiders are sitting there lurking at 6, and there's a lot of buzz that they could take him. So, again, when we do these mocks, it's a combination of what I'd consider doing, but really it's what could I see the Bears potentially doing. And I do think this is a scenario that is at least potentially in play. And when you look at that draft order, the Raiders are the big bullet to dodge for Ashton Jeanty. Now, could some other team trade up to 7 or 8 and take him? Could the Saints take him at 9? Could New England take him at 4 if the Giants go Travis Hunter after Abdul Carter at 2 and the Patriots just say, screw it, we're going to give Drake May the best offensive weapon available. But Jeanty to Vegas at 6, it feels real. It feels like those rumors have a lot of legs to them. I don't think it's a lock. I don't think it's a done deal by any means. But if he gets drafted to Vegas on draft night, I don't think any of us should be shocked. I mean, I think that's a very realistic thing. Pete Carroll wants to run the football. They don't have a starting caliber running back. I think he makes a lot of sense for Vegas. So if the Bears love him a ton and want to get him and know that they are going to get him, then trading up might be the path to do it. I might be willing to do this. For Ashton Jeanty or Mason Graham, if it only costs you one of 39 or 41, I'm not trading a future one to do it. I'm not trading a day 2 pick or a second-round pick plus another pick to do it. But in some ways, it would kind of be the perfect symmetry ending to the Panthers trade. Like you use that second-round pick since you have an extra one from Carolina from the trade 2 years ago, and you secure what you hope and think is going to be a blue-chip running back in Ashton Jeanty. All right, revisiting the trade here. Would you do this for Ashton Jeanty? Would you trade up for him to only give up one of your second-round picks? Obviously, in addition to number 10, type Y for yes, you would, or type N for no, you would not. Here's what Bears fans think on this one. If I'm going to trade up, I would like to trade down from the other second-round pick that I still have. So I'm going to do that here. Chargers come calling. They get 39. I get 55. And 86, so I pick up an additional third-round pick. So, in essence, instead of having 2 second-round picks, I still get 2 third-round picks when it's all said and done. So, I still have 4 picks in the top 86 instead of 4 in the top 72. So, when you put it in that kind of realm, it's easier of a pill to swallow, even though, obviously, you had to give up a top 41 pick to pull that off. At least you get an additional top 90 pick back. Okay, Aireontae Ersery, who we've taken a lot in the second round, but I even love it more if it's more like in the 50s here. I don't think he's a developmental tackle, but he needs more developing, if that makes sense. Like, he's not like some day 3. Like, he's not Karan Amagaji. Like, he's a 3-year starting left tackle in the Big Ten. So, clearly he's a fairly high-level player in a major conference, but I do think there's some technique work needed. You'd love it if his foot speed was a tick better, but he tested out athletically much better than I thought, so that was promising. Like I said, he's been a 3-year starter at left tackle for a program that historically has pumped out pretty good offensive line, so I like that. I think, if you listen to Ryan Poles this week with Hogan Johns and just with the media in general, they clearly like Braxton Jones, but Ben Johnson himself said he will likely be limited coming back into training camp. Ryan Poles is still high on Karan Amagaji, but acknowledged, that's a work in progress. They still, if the right situation is available, would like to add competition to that left tackle position. That's a word that's been used a lot. I think this is kind of the perfect example of that. Because if you're taking Will Campbell at 10, sure, maybe it's competition, but if you're taking a guy at 10, especially to be a left tackle, whether it's week 1 this year or later in the season or at least by next year, like, that's your starter. If not, that's a problem. Like, you should not take a guy at 10 that does not become at least a starter by year 2. Aireontae Ersery is a guy, hey, come and compete. If you earn the job, sweet. If you're a high-level swing tackle, that becomes a starter down the road, that's fine as well. So I think middle, late second round, you get a left tackle here with some traits. I think that's, then you got 3 guys in that room, make the best man win. Okay, round 3, pick 72. This is becoming one of my guys, if you will. And I might just do a video. Shout out to Marshall Green, our Giants host. He put out a my guys in this draft. I think he looked at 4 or 5 players. CJ West might become one of those for me. He's just fun, man. And he's just, you like the story. He's a local kid as well from the Chicago area. Under-recruited, goes to Kent State for 4 years. 5th-year COVID senior, goes to Indiana, is a big part of that defense and team that obviously made it to the college football playoff. Graded out well per PFF. Despite being probably more of a one-tech in the NFL, pass rush win rate of over 10%. So I think he gives you a little wiggle as a one-tech and as a pass rusher. He's excellent against the run, and we'll get to a stat here in a moment that really outlines that. The testing impressed me. I did not think he would be this much in the green. The only red is the height, and I actually think that's an advantage in this case because he uses kind of that bowling ball lower to the ground center of gravity to his advantage to create leverage. It's very similar to Andrew Billings. He reminds me a lot of Andrew Billings, but I think you might get a little more wiggle out of this guy in terms of being able to penetrate more as a pass rusher. But I think Billings would be a great guy for him to learn under for a year. And then remember, Billings is a free agent next year, so if they need to let him walk or whatever the case may be, then he could take over with a larger role next season. But I think he could be in a rotation right now as a run stopper, as a rookie. I think the 3rd round is the sweet spot for him. He's not traitsy enough to be a first-round pick or probably even a second-round pick, but I think the 3rd round, he brings a lot to the table. And this is one of those wow stats, right? Brett Coleman put this out. He does great work as well. He said, here's a fun CJ West stat for you. Indiana's average depth on tackle against A-gap runs, that's right up the middle, was just 2.11 yards. So what he means there is like on a handoff or a QB run, they're tackling people on average through the A-gap 2.1 yards downfield. That's pretty good, right? Like you're stuffing the run. Next closest team, 2.75. That's more than a half yard further to the offensive side of the line of scrimmage or to the where they snap the ball. That's pretty significant when you're talking about the average over the season. Indiana only faced 85 such runs because teams clearly figured out you can't run up the middle, which was 104th in the country, so teams just didn't do it against them. But that's still effective, right? It forces teams to do other things. And on 104 or on 85 of those, 29 tackles for loss or no gains. 4th most, despite facing it only 104th most times. CJ West. He's basically saying CJ West forced teams to attack elsewhere. When you have a guy that forces your opponent to do other things, that's a game changer. Now, is he going to do that consistently in the NFL? Who knows, right? Especially as a rookie. But that guy can play, and he could play in a rotation right away. That's a crazy stat. Especially for an Indiana team who, let's face it, that was an offensive-centric team this year if you watch them. Like, he was their best defensive player. So I thought that was a really cool stat, really cool story, being under-recruited, like I mentioned, just grinding his way up. I would love it for him to get drafted by the Bears in the 3rd round. All right, more picks to come, but we got to tell you about our sponsor first. That is Prize Picks, daily fantasy made easy at prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use the code CLNS. Spring is here, which means baseball has entered the chat. If you want to use baseball players in your daily fantasy lineups, you can do that. You can have an all-baseball lineup, or you can have a baseball player in your lineup along with the basketball player, along with the hockey player. That's the beauty of Prize Picks. You can cross over sports with your lineups. 2 or more players on 2 or more different teams, regardless of sport, qualifies for a lineup, and then you just pick more or less on the stat projections, available points, rebounds, assists, home runs, hits, strikeouts, all kinds of stats depending on the sport's fantasy score as well. Head over to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use the code CLNS to get started today. Got a little season-long football action available for you guys as well. Caleb Williams, more on the passing yards. That's less than what he threw last year in a bad offense. So I love the more on that play. And then James Cook, I like him to reach 1,000 or more rushing yards. $10 to win 30 on this one. That's what I fired off. But, if you want to do bigger money, if you want to do bigger lineups to win up to 1,000 times your money back on a certain lineup, that's available as well. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Use the code CLNS if you're a first-time customer to get $50 for free when you sign up to play for just $5. Check it out. All right, here's a different pick. Because I try to have new guys enter these mocks. I don't want to pick the same players every time. Savion Williams, a player I'm very familiar with, went to my alma mater, TCU, 5-year player. Wide receiver, but really just an athlete. Played some running back this year. That second yards is supposed to be rush yards, by the way. Our fault on that. But caught 60 passes for 611, 51 carries for 322 rushing yards, so 6 yards per carry. They kind of created a wildcat package for him. And as a TCU fan, I watch every snap of every season. It saved their season. I'm not joking. They were 2-2 or 3-3 when they introduced this, and they finished 9-4 because it just opened up a whole new element of their offense because he's such a physically imposing player, and their normal running backs just weren't getting the job done. The O-line wasn't a great run blocking unit, and he was able to just find lanes and break tackles and just create explosives. And, he's an intriguing player because my just quick breakdown, massive frame, right? 6'4", 225. As a receiver, elite contested catch guy. You could throw jump balls to him in the red zone on the outside, but he's not that great of a route runner. Like, if some team drafts him and it's just like, hey, come be our number 2 receiver and just run the full route tree, like, it's just not going to work. Like, that's a bad plan. But if you have a vision for him and use his versatility, put him in the slot some as a big slot, put him on the outside, throw screens to him, get him in space, throw jump balls to him, have a wildcat package for him, hand the ball off to him everywhere, put him as your kick returner. I think he could be a really good kick returner in the NFL as well. I do think the comp, which you see a lot of Cordero Patterson, is a good one. I think he may have a little more juice, and I do think his receiver skills are a little better than Cordero's were. Like, he was kind of viewed as a bust early in his career, then he found value when he moved more to running back. I think he can give you more as a receiver than Cordero did. He's a very unique player. Again, if you're just drafting him to just be a willy-nilly wide receiver, it's probably not going to work out that well. But if you get him with the creative offensive coach, Ben Johnson, that can work. Like, I think like a Sean Payton would love this guy. A Kyle Shanahan would be like, this could be our next Debo type, something like that. So, if you pick up an extra third-round pick, I think this is probably the range. Somewhere between 60 and 100, I think, is probably where Savion will and should go. He's a fun player who, you can manufacture 6 to 8 touches for him a game, and he could give you some explosives if you use him properly. Okay, subscribe to the channel. We'll continue to pump out the latest Bears news, rumors, mock drafts leading up to the draft, draft buzz, trade rumors, everything else surrounding this football team. Share that link below with a friend. It's youtube.com/BearsNow. All right, we'll go rapid fire on these day 3 picks. Kobe King. I'm trying to just mention a different linebacker each mock. Maybe they take one on day 2, but they got to get somebody into that room with Jack Sanborn out of the picture. King has an interesting profile. He can cover a little bit. Had some injuries in college, so we'll see kind of where he goes. Clay Webb's an interesting guy. I actually think he'll probably go earlier than this. Played at Jacksonville State, but pretty athletic guard. Some think he could play some center as well. So if you want like a developmental, athletic, interior offensive lineman, I think he could be a guy you take late on day 3 to push for a roster spot because you still need depth on your offensive line. And Malachi Moore, not a great athlete, but played a lot of ball at Bama. Good production there as well. Obviously, last year didn't play under Nick Saban, but he's had some Nick Saban coaching, which I value a great deal. So you get a guy like that late on day 3, add a safety to your room, certainly not a bad thing. All right, so just to rehash the picks, obviously the day 1, day 2, you trade up for Ashton Jeanty, get him at 5. Trade one of your second-round picks to do it, but then you trade back from your other second-round pick, get Aireontae Ersery at 55 overall, C.J. West at 72, starting to fall in love with this kid. Savion Williams at 86. I think with Ben Johnson, it could work, could be fun. And then your day 3 picks we just talked about, Kobe King, the linebacker out of Penn State in round 5, and then your 2 7th-rounders, Jacksonville State offensive lineman Clay Webb and Bama safety Malachi Moore. Grade this mock draft, A, B, C, D, or F. How are we feeling about this one? Drop a letter grade down in the comment section below. Every time we drop a mock draft, that means we're that much closer to the real shebang. I can't wait for it to be here. Be sure to subscribe, turn on those noties, and don't miss any of the content and updates that are going to continue to drop onto your feed and YouTube algorithm as we get closer and closer to the draft. And, of course, join us for draft night. Going to be a blast.